speaking of Toronto, I can only assume that's where the award-winning Devin Heroux is. It's where he's hanging his hat these days, I think. He's kind of a global traveler. How you doing, Devin?
Well, Roddy, I can tell you I contributed to the Looney Dog total at the Rogers Center because I was down at the ballpark. In fact, I was there last night to watch the end of this lackluster Jays season. So, yes, I'm in Toronto, and it's good to be back on Canadian soil.
Nice. Well, listen, you are that global traveler, as I say. Now, before we go any further, I'll say congratulations on the award, but I don't want to muddle it up. Can you explain to me this prestigious honor that you've been bestowed?
I was hoping you would, because I've muddled it up every time I've tried to talk about it. Listen, it's the King's Coronation Medal, and this, of course, was an award created in recognition of people who have served their country or community. And the Governor General, Mary Simon, selected 100 people across the country to get this award, get this medal. Roddy, I think it's the first time in my life I've won a medal after all the interviews I've done with athletes who have worn medals. And, they played the national anthem, and I had this medal on, and I can understand what it's like to get emotional, because I've been in the stadium so many times listening to the anthem and have gotten emotional at times. But to have a medal on, hear the anthem at the Governor General's residence, and being awarded for my journalism was pretty cool.
Little old guy from the 306. That's what makes me the proudest, Devin. And, so congratulations on that. That's really exciting, a rare honor. Okay, my next question is this. As a guy that, and by the way, you have earned it, very deserving of this, but following your Paris coverage, the Olympics, what was it like? Because I'll be honest, I was turned off at the start with the coverage about the boxing gender controversy, the soccer spying, the contaminated Seine River. Like, was it that bad, or was that just what I was seeing?
No, I think it was just a lot of people were bored, because you have to fill broadcasts and newspapers and podcasts with things. And so, there's always these stories, Rod, when you get to within that last week leading into the Olympics. Security concerns. Will the venues be ready? What's in the water? And then the games start. And of course, we had the Canadian women's soccer drone scandal. And as a journalist, I was positioned at La Défense Arena, which was absolutely electric. I've been in a lot of stadiums, a lot of loud buildings. I've never seen anything like this. It was as loud as you could imagine. It gave me goosebumps every single night. But then the magic of the games actually happens. And that is the purity of sport, right? The athletes performing on the big stage, and everything sort of goes away. That being said, when you have a scandal like the Canadian women's soccer drone situation, it wasn't ideal. And I can tell you, behind the scenes, Team Canada was somewhat scrambling, because they didn't want to be talking about that. They wanted to be talking about Summer McIntosh winning another gold medal at the pool. And yet a lot of people were talking about it. So it's a delicate dance. And when you're in the bubble of the games, everything feels super, super urgent, and you're exhausted, and you're chugging coffee, and you're just trying to get to the next event. And then, Rod, suddenly you're in the middle of it all, and somebody breaks a world record, or the Canadian men's 4x100 meter relay team stuns the Americans and everybody else to win gold. And everybody's happy again. And that, to me, is the power of sport. It unites this country in a way very few things do. And, outside of a few tripwires here and there, I thought Paris did a great job. I ate all the cheese and baguettes and croissants you could imagine. And the sport was pretty good, too.
God, I could listen to you forever. You're like a shaven head, bearded Brian Williams. I love it.
I should give you a time check. I should give you a time check. Right now in Toronto, we're approaching one. Yeah, exactly. That's always a tough one, because they do the half-hour thing. It always screws me up.
Yeah, exactly. You are the next Brian Williams, there's no doubt, and that is very high praise. Well, that's, by the way, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing and why you're doing what you're doing. You can't tell me what you want talked about, because I won't talk about what you want talked about. I'll talk about what I want to talk about. And that doesn't really seem to fly in today's sports world. But I'm going to throw you a real bomb that you can handle. Summer Olympics, Winter Olympics. What do you like best?
You know what? That is a bombshell, because as a kid who grew up in Saskatchewan, who was brought into this Olympic world by Sandra Schmirler and that great team in 1998, I always believed, Rod, that it was all about the Winter Olympics, that we were a winter nation.
Mm-hmm.
It was about hockey. It was about ice in our veins. It was about all the heritage moments we tell ourselves about who we are as tough Canadians. I would argue, and I have been arguing, that I actually believe that we're more of a summer sporting nation than we are a winter sporting nation. I think the demographics of the country have changed. I think we're excelling in sports that are globally recognized. You know, a little bit of a hot take, and I know you got a big hockey show today. But the reality of it
All good.
is outside of this area of the world, hockey ain't that big a deal. But guess what? Soccer, basketball, track and field, cricket, it is a big deal in mass amounts of popularity. So the fact that Canadians are actually excelling in sports that are globally respected and recognized, to me, is signaling a whole new way of how we think about ourselves as a country. And I probably, outside of curling, God bless curling, I probably prefer the Summer Olympics now. That might be a hot take, but I probably prefer the Summer Olympics.
How about that?
There's no wrong answer. But I think those soccer jerks should be kicked out of the country, because I'm sitting here in America now with the paperwork to prove it, trying to stay on all my P's and Q's and keep the government happy. And here's these guys breaking rules and disgracing the country, and they're not even from Canada. You want to talk about hot take. But listen, I don't know how much time you've got. If you got 5 more minutes, you speak about what's important. Hockey to Canada, the Riders to Saskatchewan. You and I are due for a coffee, just so you know. Come down to South Florida sometime. Yeah. Because the Riders, they didn't like me talking about what I was talking about. I'm like, what would you like me to talk about then if I can't talk about? Well, we have 2 players appearing at the Southland Mall Saturday for an autograph session, 2 till 4. Why don't you talk about that? There's the door. I'll talk about what I want to talk about. That's just, you can see how that would be a thing, right, Devin? But I'm not asking for your opinion on that. What I'm asking for is your opinion on the CFL. Have you been able to follow it, given your globetrotting this summer?
I do. And in fact, what I wasn't publicizing, because it was all Olympics all the time, but I was up, Rod, like I have been since the first time I listened to you on 620, how many years ago now? Still the best. In fact, actually, before I came on to this show, I'm in our CBC Sports studio downtown. I told one of my colleagues, I said, the way I come to understand sports broadcasting was through you, Rod. You were the first voice I ever heard call sports on the radio, and you painted a picture in a way that very few do. And it absolutely informed the way I wanted to move forward about how I talked about sports. So that's your compliment for the day from me. That being said, I was up in the middle of the night in Paris listening to every Rough Rider game, devastated at the finish of most games while I was there. In fact, they didn't win a game while I was gone, and then I returned and they won a victory at McMahon. So I'm never leaving the country again, because you know how superstitious I can be about this team. I'm coming home Thanksgiving, and I'm going to the game against the Lions, and I'm hoping that it's a game that has home playoff game ramifications on the line. I follow the league as much as I possibly can. I'm headed to BMO Field after the afternoon game, Riders, Red Blacks, and then I'm going to go watch the Argos and whoever they play. I don't even know, but I'll find out when I get to BMO. I follow the league. I was reflecting on this, Rod, about the fact that I'll never forget, every year I would do this state of the league address and sit down interview with Randy Ambrosi, and he talked about the last great part of the nationwide railroad, which was to get a team in Halifax, and there was all this momentum. And it is such the story of the CFL, isn't it? These ebbs and flows of why it doesn't work and why it does work, and we're growing and we're expanding and we're not, and we're taking 2 steps forward. We're going to the command center to do this, but we're not going to do it for this. And it just feels like it's a league that gets in the way of itself and has never fully understood what it is. And I think until it can understand what it is, and that is sort of a grassroots, your hardcore base of fans who just love it and everybody else who wants to complain about it. I don't know if they'll ever fully realize the great nationhood hope that has been proclaimed to me over the years. I love it. I'll always love it. I'll always give the Rough Riders so much of my gratitude for allowing me to be curious and understand what sport can mean to a place. And yet there's parts of the game that drive me crazy. But I'll continue to watch and support the team. You know that.
We take the positives. We love it for what it is. And as you know, you're very important to me. I remember every chat we've ever had. One was in the parking lot of McMahon Stadium. Of course, the coffee at Starbucks in the Westin. I remember them all. Devin, thanks. Keep being you, and proud of you for that award, man. Way to go.
I appreciate you a lot, Rod. Great to talk to you.
Thanks, Devin. Have a great afternoon. Devin Heroux of the CBC joining us from downtown Tirana.